Satan between the Testaments. When you look at the picture of Satan that we see in the Old Testament, we see a number of emphases that he has when you look at him described in the Hebrew Scriptures. The tempter, Genesis 3, the rebel of Isaiah and Ezekiel, the adversary of Job and Zechariah. When you get to the New Testament, Satan looks a lot different, sounds a lot different. He's a bigger character. He's the leader of a huge number of demons who are resisting Christ and resisting the apostles and resisting God. How did we get from the Old Testament view to the New Testament view? Well, that's what we're going to look at today. This period of time between the Old Testament and the New Testament, between Malachi and Matthew, is often called the Intertestamental period or the Second Temple period. What happens here is, even though you don't have any books being written that made it into the Jewish canon, there's a huge amount of turmoil. You've had military conquests, you have a lot of social agitation, a lot of spiritual turmoil. People are writing books, they're praying, they're teaching and preaching, they're engaged in all the things that we do today as a spiritual community in the church. Imagine that in those days, you didn't have the internet, but people were writing, and those writings were circulating, and what we have surviving to this current time is we have the Dead Sea Scrolls, we have Enoch, we have Jubilees, and a large number of other materials that have come down to us that are being studied. I'm studying them right now, and what you see on them is wild. One of the things you see is the development of the thinking and ideas of angels and demons, good and evil, and Satan. During this time period, you have a lot of the cultures and nations and peoples around them. There's a lot of cross-pollination of ideas. There's Greek thinking coming in. There's Roman influence coming in. The nations around Israel are putting in their ideas about what's going on. Out of this period of turmoil and examination and prayer comes what we call the intertestamental or Second Temple literature. What happens here is there's a great deal of thinking that's coming out, and people are writing as they are praying and studying and saying, this is what I think God is saying. I consider a lot of this material to be very sound and very prophetic. It may not read exactly like the scriptures, but there's a lot there. And during this time period, the ideas of good and evil, angels and demons and Satan are going through a lot of development. And so what you see here is Satan becoming more of a figure as a leader, Satan developing into the leader of the resistance against God, Satan as the leader of large numbers of demons, Satan as a strategic resistance to the kingdom of God and the will of God. These are things that you don't see in the Old Testament, but during these intervening years, what some people call the silent years, they were anything but silent. And you have books like the Martyrdom and Ascension of Isaiah, 1st and 2nd Enoch, the Testament of the 12 Patriarchs, many other writings in the Dead Sea Scrolls. These thoughts are developing. The people of God are praying. They're seeking the Lord. This was not a time of dead formalistic religion. This was a time when the Jewish community was fully alive. They were seeking God. They were writing. They were praying. And they were writing the things that they thought God was saying to the community. And those writings have come down to us in these days that we are living here right now. I'm studying this material intensively, and it's during this time period, the intertestamental literature, Second Temple period, this literature marks a shift in the outlook on life and death, life after death, the afterlife, angels, demons, good and evil. All of this literature during this time period, or a great deal of it, is talking about the development of the thinking and understanding of the people of God during this time leading up to the time of Christ. Now, not everybody bought into this, of course. We know that groups like the Sadducees, they were very resistant to these kind of ideas. They were like, nope, we're just going to go with Moses. Moses is enough for us. We're not going to go into all of this crazy angels and demonic and everything else. No, we're not doing that. We believe in the basics, the Bible. And that was okay for them. That movement died out. By the 2nd century, that movement was gone. And what you had was what we see now as the Jewish community. But what I'm here to tell you is that from the time when the canon was closed, the Old Testament that we see in our Bibles, in between there and the New Testament, it was a time of spiritual life, spiritual aliveness, spiritual development, prayer, hearing from God, seeking God. And out of that time period, you had a big shift in the development of the understanding of the people of God, to the point where Satan is now a fully developed character in his own right. He is the leader of the resistance. He has demons on his side that he can dispatch to go here and there. And you have the angels becoming a much bigger part of the picture, and the afterlife. All of these things are undergoing a lot of development over a period of some 300 or 400 years between the close of the Old Testament literature, the canon, and the development of the New Testament. During that time period, things turned a corner to a large extent. Now, many of them were not carried over into Judaism after the fall of Jerusalem in the year 70, but much of this came into the understanding of the young Christian movement and the early church, which adopted this stuff largely wholesale. Their ideas of the afterlife, angels, demons, and Satan, and many other things. What you see in the New Testament, many of those thoughts and a great deal of the ideas came from the theological and biblical development, prayer, and seeking God, and writing and discussing that took place during the Second Temple period, the Intertestamental period. This is a major thing. Now, people don't write about this very much, at least in the churches that we're a part of. The people who are watching these videos, you don't hear too much about this. You've got to go looking for it. That's why we're doing these videos. We're doing a series on Enoch and the Watchers. We're developing this series on angels and demons. We're trying to bring you some of the best thinking and the best resources and the best information from thousands of years of development of history, theology, biblical understanding, and the development of what is God doing and how is he doing it. And we hope that you'll continue to watch with us as we investigate angels and demons on this series, Enoch and the Watchers in our other series, and the other stuff that we have. Please subscribe and take a look around. There's stuff here you can't find anywhere else. And we look forward to seeing you again soon. God bless you.